Hey, everybody. Of course, everybody talking about the 49ers draft, myself included, talking about number 11, the first round draft pick for the 49ers. And that area has been hit and miss for the team since John Lynch came aboard running the draft in 2017. Of course, they've had some hits. They've also had some spectacular failures. But really, the meat of this draft for the 49ers and where they can do a lot of damage is in those middle rounds, say from pick 100 to 160. They have picks at 100, 113, 138, 147, and 160. So that's five picks in that 60 pick range. And I'm a little bit skeptical whether the 49ers will take an offensive lineman at number 11. It might be that they see kind of a generational talent there who could fall, whether that be Armand Mimbu or whether that is Will Campbell. That remains to be seen. But I kind of think that the sweet spot for the 49ers in adding an offensive lineman is in that 100 to 160 range. And there's one particular guy that I'm thinking about, and I think he just kind of sets up well. Now, as far as being a year one starter, I wouldn't say that. But the guy I'm thinking about is Charles Grant from William and Mary. He played left tackle in college, obviously a smaller school, but he has long arms, 34 and three quarters inches. He has great size, or good size anyway, 6'5, 309, but he has really good movement skills. And for the 49ers, when they're looking at offensive linemen, that's the number one area that they look at. So he is seen as a big, very nimble, athletic guy who can get out in space and make blocks. They need to refine him, and that's what Chris Furster, the 49ers offensive line coach, is all about. Furster is viewed as a very good offensive line coach, one of the best in the NFL. And frankly, it kind of takes me back to the Bob McKittrick days where the 49ers have been, kind of reluctant to place a lot of draft resources into the offensive line early on as far as the first round. I mean, think back to the Bill Walsh days. The 49ers rarely, I think one time during that tenure did they take an offensive lineman in the first round, and that was late in the first round. That was Harris Barden. But for the most part, what they did was they took offensive linemen that they knew that they could develop or thought they had a chance to develop, and they really placed a lot of that onto the plate of Bob McKittrick. And I think that's what the 49ers have been doing here since the John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan regime took over, as far as finding offensive linemen for Chris Furster to develop. Of course, they went out and they got the big trade for Trent Williams. But for the most part, other than I guess Mike McGlinchey, a first round pick, other than Aaron Banks, a second round pick, they really tried to find those nuggets in the middle rounds or just get, guys off the scrap heap, so to speak. So anyway, the guy that I think really to keep an eye on, like I said, Charles Grant, a guy who played left tackle. The 49ers have shown interest in him with a private workout. So he's somebody that wouldn't be a first year starter, but potentially, if he develops and shows the kind of improvement that the 49ers would think that they would be getting out of a guy who's 6'5", 309, nearly 35-inch arms, potentially he could be somebody that takes over for Trent Williams down the road. And think about, where they found Jalen Moore several years ago. 4 years ago, they draft Jalen Moore, and he never ever became a starter for the 49ers because of the guys in front of him, Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz. But the Kansas City Chiefs saw something in Jalen Moore that convinced them that he could be their starter at left tackle, not only a starter at left tackle, but also the starter who protects the blind side of, the most valuable player in the NFL. I know he wasn't named most valuable player, but I think that no player is more important to his team than Patrick Mahomes is to Kansas City. So that is one guy where who 49ers could fall in that 100 to 160 range. With Grant, the 49ers, if there is that possibility, the 49ers could use a later pick to go up a few spots to get him, going up to say, whatever, 93 or 92 to get Charles Grant. So that's where some maneuvering in the draft is a possibility where, maybe, I don't know if they'll have that opportunity to trade back in round one, but if they do trade back in round one or round two, you get some draft capital a little bit later that then you could use to go up and get somebody a little bit later in the draft. So that is one guy to keep an eye on. Another one to keep an eye on, and this guy played mostly right tackle at Kansas, is Logan Brown. Oh, by the way, there's this consensus board that takes pretty much all the big boards and kind of melds them into one. On the consensus board, Charles Grant is listed as 98, 98th overall prospect for this draft. As far as Logan Brown goes, he's at 148. And so there's three guys here that I'm going to mention. Logan Brown at 148, Logan Brown's from Kansas, Chase Lunt from UConn, 167, and then the left tackle from Wisconsin, Jack Nelson at 193. So all those guys kind of fit into that realm of anywhere, say, from 113, 138, 147, 160, where the 49ers have all those draft picks. Um, so Brown is a guy that, again, long arms, 6'6", 311, so good size. And he projects as a middle round pick. Could be somebody will be a starter. That would be the idea. That would be the hope for anybody that the 49ers take in this section of the draft, where they're not going to be a year one starter, but they can develop them, maybe be a swing tackle earlier in their career. And then when something happens and they need a starting tackle, that's where that becomes an option. So Logan Brown, keep an eye on him. Chase Lund, a big fella at 6'7" and 1/2 and 303 pounds. So he needs to work on his strength, holding the point of attack, and the kind of the common thread that runs through all these guys that I'm talking about on this one is just the athleticism. Because of the 49ers outside zone blocking scheme, they need guys who can get out in space. They need, guys who are good in the first 10 yards of the 40-yard dash, three cone drill, guys who have worked in that system. Chase Lund is one of those guys. So again, projects as a swing tackle. He played mostly right tackle at UConn, but should have the athleticism and the ability to play left tackle as well. And then another guy, a big guy as well, 6'7", 319 pounds. His name is Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. A lot of penalties for Jack during his career, but a very skilled player. He has the athleticism, the movement skills, works good in zone blocking schemes. So he's somebody to keep an eye on as well. So just wanted to list a few names there of guys who, if the 49ers aren't able or willing to take an offensive lineman early in this draft, that they could wait until the third round, the fourth round, the fifth round to fill that void. It worked out pretty well for them last year when they got Dominic Puni with their third round pick after taking Ricky Pearsall round one, Renardo Green round two. They waited and got Puni. And frankly, if they had taken an offensive lineman in the first round, like a lot of people, 49er fans, hoped they would or said they hoped they would, I don't know that they could have done better than Dominic Puni, and they got him in the third round. So that's kind of the update on where I see the 49ers. Again, it's very skeptical that they're going to take an offensive lineman in round one because of all the reasons I mentioned, including just, if somebody hasn't separated themselves, can they get somebody that is maybe where the drop off isn't as great, going to, say, the third offensive lineman in the first round to getting somebody in that 100 to 160 range. Maybe they feel like they can get somebody just as talented or with as much potential down the line that they can develop, and they don't feel the need to just throw into the fire right away. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like, leave a comment, and that is it for now.